Seder of Vayeishev. We know the Seder very well. If you've learnt it in the Chumash, that's fantastic. If you've seen it performed in the theatre, Joseph in the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, we know the narrative. We know that there was this guy called Yosef and his brothers hated him and they sold him. Stop right there. Are you certain that the brothers sold Yosef? You're saying, well, obviously, that's what we've learned always. That's what we saw on the stage. That's what we learned in school. But the narrative itself really is not so clear. And if you begin to search through the commentators, you will see that it's, or read the Pesukim slowly, you'll see it's not so obvious that the brothers were the ones who sold Yosef. Pick another story. Maybe you saw the movie, The Ten Commandments, or you read the original. What exactly happened at Har Sinai? So we're going to dig into our memories. Hashem gave us the Torah. He gave us the 10. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, all the way down to don't be jealous. But then you open the commentators and all of a sudden you're gifted a panorama of, or a plethora of different interpretations. Did they really hear all 10 from Hashem? Did they only hear 2 and the rest they heard from Moshe Rabbeinu? Did they hear all 10 and just had some sort of static, but they couldn't really work out what it was all about? Why are there these supremely important, significant narratives in the Torah that are shrouded in mystery? Yeah, if you learn on a simple level, you get some sort of clarity, but the deeper you go, when you become an adult and you learn to appreciate nuance and perspective, all of a sudden, well-known stories seem to stop being well-known. It's like, well, what exactly did happen? What's the story of Hanukkah? So we know there was the war with the Syrian Greeks and there was the oil. Okay. But what's the real story of Hanukkah? What's the real story of Joseph, of Yosef? And what's the real story of Har Sinai? So I want to suggest that in all of those 3 stories, obviously there's the external, superficial, simple narrative that we embrace. But in each one, there's actually a deeper aspect of the narrative that is far more significant than the details. And perhaps it's this part of the story that is obvious, and the details of the story are less significant, and therefore we find multiple interpretations or understandings of what the story actually was. So let's take this week's Seder first. Of greater significance than who sold him is that a family could degenerate to such a level that they fell apart, that when Yosef is going to search for his brothers, he utters those pathetic words, Et achai anochi mevakesh. They're pathetic in their depressing sadness. I'm looking for my brothers. My family has collapsed around me. Where's that brotherly love? Where is brotherhood? And so you have a story here about the falling apart of a family and what can happen. How did it fall apart? What exactly happened is irrelevant. It's the fact that the family was on the cusp of a disaster. And we need to be alert to those problems. At Har Sinai, if it was 10, if it was 8, if it was 2, if it was all 10, but no one heard anything that made sense to them, it doesn't really matter. What's the story there? That an omnipotent, all-powerful, all-loving God chose to make a relationship with mankind. That's the most important. Was it experiential? Was it educational? Was it a mixture of both? Doesn't matter. And for me, the greatest part of Hanukkah is that anybody bothered to go and fight, and anybody bothered to go and find a bit of oil. In a society that was so easy to run away from, to become part of the Syrian Greek Empire, leave the Judaism behind, to anybody bothered, that to me is the greatest miracle of Hanukkah. There are people who are strong enough to say, my identity, my religion, my family, my heritage is what truly matters to me. So there you have it. We can get caught up in the details. Perhaps we can peer into the essence of what those 3 stories represent. Shabbat Shalom, Chanukah Sameach.